we'll have some other folks probably wandering in different times. Um, let me give. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you, sir?
Sorry for being late.
Oh, no, I was telling everybody who is here, I usually give people 5 or 10 minutes to stumble in. We can say hello, do a little bit of greeting. If anybody wanted to unmute and say hello to anybody else, we can absolutely do that. I did have a couple of people email in and say they were going to be a bit late, so I was going to just pause for a second or two. I put my screen up to show the agenda of what we're going to go over today. We should have plenty of time. I plan for 2 hours for this. Sometimes it takes, depending on how many questions and stuff that comes up. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, I don't see anybody else in the waiting room or waiting too much longer. So, just kind of a brief housekeeping thing again too. I don't have sometimes if there's multiple people that work together in here, we can keep an eye on the chat and stuff like that, but I'll be in and out of tabs. I'll be checking my outline and different stuff throughout the morning. So if you guys need my attention, just unmute and holler at me or whatever. If you do send in a chat, I'll try to take pauses. I don't plan in a 2-hour session. I don't generally plan for any kind of break, because then we can just kind of power through everything and get everything we need done and have time for questions and stuff. So if anybody needs a break or whatever, feel free. You guys are grown-ups, you can do whatever you need, but or just ping me and say, hey, can we take a quick break? I got a cup of coffee here, but I may need some water. Probably gonna finish my yogurt in between, minutes of talking and stuff. So we'll take little small breaks here and there, but no planned breaks, just so you're aware. So the other session, and if anybody was curious, I think what we're going to do, I've been recording all of these sessions. I'll probably clip out the beginning parts where no one was talking and make it a little bit more useful. But the plan here is probably going to be, we'll stick them all. I didn't record the first 3 or the first 2. The last one I did. I recorded the first one, but it was more like a training for the couple of people who were there. And so we were diving into their account and looking at specific things. And so it didn't end up being as useful to share in bulk. But the last one, pricing per profit using the rate matrix and smart maps and stuff, turned out pretty good. So, and this one should be the same. So what I'll plan to do after this is, if you guys want a link, you could shoot me back, but more than likely what we're going to do is wait till we get done with the final of the 8 sessions, and I'll put them all into a folder inside our Loom account. It's just like a video recording thing. And then we could share the link to the folder for everybody who's ever attended. That'll probably be more than likely what my plan is, instead of individually sending it out to people. And I definitely don't want to get into having to send sessions for, each one to 14 different people, or this one wants this session, but not that one. So we might just put them all in one library area and post it and have it all in one place, just kind of consolidate it and honestly make a little less administrative work for me afterwards. It's you wouldn't believe the process of uploading the video to Loom is anyway, and then having it there. So just going through that and getting it ready. But just so you're aware that we will have a link after this one's immediately over. If you want it, just shoot me an email, because Zoom sends me a link that's valid for like 2 weeks, and then you could go in and download it if you want. So we could always do that too, and I could forward that email as soon as I get it, because it's got a little password and stuff. I get that usually, a couple hours after we're done. So if you want that, just shoot me an email and I will, I can forward it over. It's john.bianchi@readybusinesssystems.com, or the email you got for this event should work. Just reply to that and it comes to me. So, all right, well, let's dive in. It's about 10 after. I was sort of not lollygagging, but it's using up some time. So we had people give people a chance. I'm sure some more will come in late. I say the same thing every time. I'm not going to backtrack. or go back over. If they have questions about some of the beginning stuff, I'll circle back a little bit, but I won't just start back over. So once we get going, we're going to run through. Here's the outline. We're going to start with what are tickets, calls, notes, calendar events, ticket categories. Maybe not all in that order, but then we're going to look at the ticket lists, how to view tickets, filter them, edit the table, bulk actions you can take, adding, viewing, editing a ticket. So we're going to check out all the places you can add a ticket inside Service Autopilot, what is needed for the ticket, V2 and V3, because there's benefits to using either one in either space, but you could also, depending on what screen you activate the ticket overlay from, you're going to see different information. So I like to cover that. Then doing some actions on existing tickets, changing the status, making it marketing important, stuff like that. And then we'll talk a little bit about business cases for using tickets. Now, this is going to be intermixed probably throughout the whole training, just because it's key to know why you're using a ticket and what for, but that's part of what are tickets and why use them and how to filter them and why you would want to filter for this and that kind of stuff. So just be on the lookout for the business use cases throughout the whole section. But the tickets allow for automations that happen and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to use tickets and help them accelerate your business. We do have build packages for automations and stuff here with RBS that I'm not going to go into it. We're not trying to make this like a full-on sales pitch, or it's not, none of this training is directly related to it, but we will talk about some automations and things like that we can do. And then if you guys have questions about that, then I would encourage you to schedule a call with Steve, which I think if you guys responded to the email, we're giving away $250 towards your first month for attending. So I'll post that link, Steve's link again, to schedule a call at the end. I'll put it in the chat. So anybody who wants to discuss what kind of options we have, things like that, consulting, all the stuff we do, we can talk about that later. But again, we're training on tickets. And so let's get started. Let me start by asking, and again, I just have a test account that I'm using. And so the data in here is not going to be real. So some of the stuff you see might not be in your account, or stuff you don't have. Some of it will create. So just be on the lookout for that. Let me start by asking, and you can do it with the reactions. So at the bottom of the Zoom window, there's like a reactions button. So if you guys want to do thumbs up or whatever, I think it's in here, right? Yeah, reactions. So if you guys want to do a thumbs up or unmute or whatever, but who is currently using tickets in their business already through Service Autopilot? Is anybody already doing it? I think there's a thumbs up reaction or a thumbs down one if you're not. Anybody want to comment? Who's using tickets already? No one, I don't think.
We're doing it barely scratching the surface.
Okay. All right.
So it's not a no, but it's not a full yes.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what I think that happens with a lot of people. Shauna Kelly says no. Okay. Any of the other folks, Nathan or Matt, if you guys chime in, let me know. But if either of you that aren't using it to the fullest, or anybody that was, I mean, you probably wouldn't be here if you were an expert at tickets either. So I imagine everybody's here because they want to learn how to use them. And that's why we're doing this. But were you around before tickets, Chris and Shauna? Were you guys here with to-dos and touch points and stuff like that? Are you familiar at all with what was here before?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Shauna, you too? Okay. So then let me start by saying this, and Nathan and Matt, if you guys are chiming in, if you're trying to talk, you're muted, so you can unmute, that's fine. But if not, then I'll just keep going. But before tickets happened, and if you were part of that rollout and transition, then you know it was with much fanfare and maybe not the most exciting way for it to have happened. I was actually working at Service Autopilot at the time when this happened, and much to mine and probably all of our members' chagrin, it was a very painstaking process because people were using to-dos and touch points and damage cases and different things in their business to operate to operate their customer communications, their internal tasks, all kinds of different things. And tickets replaced all of that overnight, and we were trying to migrate. Service Autopilot, I always say we because it's still kind of fresh, but Service Autopilot tried to migrate everything that you had before into the current system, but not everything was, plug and play. Well, everything was, it wasn't one-to-one, the pieces weren't, and everything else. So what are tickets now? And because what they were before, it kind of matters, but it doesn't, because it's not everything works the same way. But there's some parallels, and that's why I ask if anybody has knowledge, because I can talk about certain things. One of the business cases that I have in here for tracking customer communication, scheduling non-billable work, tracking progress of projects, stuff like that, tracking internal processes and communications. Those things are what got replaced with tickets. And if you want to think of a ticket as sort of a folder for a communication between you and someone else in your business, whether it's a client, it's a vendor, it's an employee, whoever the communication is taking place between, you can use a ticket as the general principal place to store a touch point or a damage case. So if a customer calls, for instance, and has you broke something when you guys were there servicing the property, you could start a ticket that would encompass all of the steps that it would take to fix that. And we're going to get into it. So I don't want to get into the weeds and what it is, but that's a perfect example I like to use, is because let's say you broke a patio door. It's not just like a storm door where you can go get a glass from Home Depot and replace it in 10 minutes. But even that still has 4 or 5 steps. You have to go out there and look at it, make sure you have the right glass. You know what I mean? Like, there's still steps. You can keep track of all of those steps. A lot of that's probably non-billable work. A lot of it's communication between you and your customer. You can keep all of that in one ticket. And in that case, we'll dive into what the types are, and we're gonna look even more deeply at it. But the types of tickets are: there's a call, which, and I'm showing you this from this screen for a reason, because when we start looking at all the other parts and pieces, it's easy to get distracted. But there's calls, which generally you would start if you had a phone call with somebody. But it doesn't have to only be created as a call if you talk to a human being. A call could be you talk to them out in the field. More than likely, it's probably if you spoke to them, you could use a call. A note is exactly the same thing. It works exactly the same way. It just gives a different category so that you can have a different type of ticket, not category. I'm sorry, I got distracted by looking at my list. But it's a different ticket type that you can use as a note. So maybe you got an email or a text message, or it came in through the client portal. You got some other type of communication from a customer other than a phone call. You could put it in as a note. Or if you're just making a quick note, you could put it in as a note instead of a call, because the call sort of replaces that touch point where you talked to them or did something with them. A note is, we're updating this ticket or this folder of events, or we got some kind of communication that wasn't necessarily a phone call or whatever, but you could see it in different ways. My thing just says I'm sharing my screen. Were you guys seeing it before, and you are now, or it just notified me that because it's just being weird? Or maybe somebody jumped in. I don't know, but hopefully you were seeing my thing the whole time. So that's a call and that's a note. They're basically the exact same thing. They're just a different type. So you can kind of split them up into 2 different categories, and you guys can decide how you want to use it. I'll show you some ways that I think it could be used in the best way. I think the best ways to use them. And some of what I'm describing, and some of it is simply you guys have to decide how you want to use tickets in your business, and you can customize it however you want, and you can do it however you want. The one thing that is universal, and it's really cool, is calendar events. And so these are what replaced the to-dos that you could schedule before. Calendar events can be scheduled, they can be routed, they can be optimized. So and they're used for non-billable tasks in your business. So let's say you have somebody that has to go pick up you have a PO box and somebody has to go get the mail once a week or however often you do it. You could schedule a repeatable task that shows up on someone's My Day page or on a mobile app or anywhere you want. You could schedule a calendar event as a recurring event that shows up every single time. You can create an automation that does this and schedules it out. You could schedule a calendar event for renewing your PCI compliance, which is something we've just been doing and setting up for people. There's a ton of stuff you could do for calendar events that create a task that needs to be completed that can be routed and scheduled and dispatched. That's the biggest thing. The notes and stuff you can make work with that too, and automations can pop up different types of tickets. But the calendar events are super cool and distinctive because you can schedule them, route them, and optimize them. So if you're doing estimates, you're sending a customer, like a salesperson or a customer service rep or somebody out to do estimates, or it's you going out and doing estimates, you can schedule those with calendar events. And we're going to dive into all that stuff. Then the last thing is ticket categories. And so you could split up and divide up your categories. And this is useful, especially if you use the client portal, because then you could show certain ticket categories that your customers are allowed to ask for or submit tickets for. But you can also build them out in your business so that they're showing up in different places. And when we get into building them and using them, I'll explain more about the ticket categories and what they are and everything moving forward. So starting there, do we have any questions? I know sometimes I can talk fast. So if I'm going too fast or talking too fast, let me know. This stuff gets, I think, super exciting, kind of nerd out a little bit. And so if I'm just going too fast for anybody, just let me know. But does anybody have any questions so far? I'll give a brief break and take a sip of my coffee and wait for any questions. Okay. Well, then let's just dive in. We're going to look at the ticket list. And so you'll notice if you go to CRM tickets, if you don't have access to that and it doesn't show up, and this pops up because if you've never been there before, or if you're using a test account that's not always been active, but it's got a little walkthrough. Sometimes my Zoom likes to act like a scratch off lottery ticket. And if you're looking, I'm moving my mouse around and then it'll just load. So I apologize sometimes if my Zoom window is loading slow, but yeah, sometimes it's fun. You could scratch off different things. But first off, if you come here, and you haven't been using tickets, you're not gonna have a list of all these tickets. So I'm gonna clear all my filters, and this is the page you're more than likely going to see. It's gonna be blank. You're not gonna have any tickets. If you have email integrations turned on, you're going to see a bunch of tickets and they're all going to say emails, and they're probably not going to have an account assigned to them. There's going to be a ton of different stuff, but you can always go to, and one thing that you'll notice too, that's very clear, tickets in general are only a V3 function. They've done some styling to show ticket functionality in V2, but it's ultimately a V3 only screen. So when you come to a ticket list, the ticket list, it's going to have the V3. It's going to have the V3 ticket list. And so if you're not familiar with V3 screens or lists or anything like that, we're going to go over it really briefly, but you can search by account name up here really quickly. So if you did have a list, you could search by account name super fast. So if you're looking for a particular client, you can do that. You can also find ticket information from the quick search up here. So if you click on the quick search, you don't have to come down here and type. If you notice my cursor is bouncing already, when you click that, there's two places in Service Autopilot this works, is the quick search and the settings list. So if you click this or the gear icon, when that loads fully, when the screen is popped up, you can just start typing something in here and it'll start to filter it. Now, I don't know. Yeah, there's some tests in here, but it starts with clients and leads, but it has 4 other tabs. And you could search for tickets for, I don't know why it's showing, tests, because there's tests in the names. So you could search tickets in here. You just have to click over. It doesn't save it. So if you're on payments and you click back in here, it does save it. Okay. So whatever the last one was, if you leave the page I think it refreshes. It'll almost always come back to clients and leads. But if you're looking for a particular ticket, now you're probably not going to remember the ticket number because some of them can get really high, but you're more than likely going to look for a client name or maybe the title of the ticket, which is the subject line. But you can find ticket information from either place, either the CRM tickets list or going to the quick search and looking for tickets. I'll show you on some client accounts where those show up, but on the ticket list, because it's a V3 screen, you have the ability to do some functionality here. You can drag and drop the headings. So if you wanted to see if the account name was more important to you than maybe the status, you can just click the little dots over here and click and drag it and put it wherever you want. I'm going to load a filter, and I'll just load open tickets just so you can see what those boxes look like in case yours is empty too. But the headings can be moved. If you edit the table, you can decide which headings are in here or not. I think I have them all selected, but then the other thing you can do is you can filter by, it starts filtering by ticket number by default when you load it. But if you wanted to group them or filter the list, sort the list by any of these column headings, then you could just click on it. So if you had all these, go do this, if you did the subject line or the due date or whatever, you can click it twice and it'll go up or down the due dates. If you go back to the ticket number, it starts, I think, with the lowest one, and then when you click it again, now it starts at the highest number down lower. So that tells you here. So this is sorting up, right, with the arrow, and this is sorting down. So you got the highest number. One of the other things that they've added somewhat recently, so if you haven't messed with tickets, any of the blue stuff on a V3 screen is basically clickable. So you can watch a ticket if you're not watching it. So the person you're logged in as, in this case, I'm Sanders Young. This ticket is assigned to Audrey Spencer. I'm not watching this ticket, but if I wanted to, and we'll talk about this a little more when we talk, but you can click and add that from the ticket list. The other thing you could do is click on the ticket number and it'll open it. And I'm not going to get into that yet because we'll look at that. We're just looking at the list right now. And then it shows all this information. If you open the account, generally it goes by the list of items of what you're on. So if you were to open one of these accounts from the ticket list on the quick add, like I'm going to open Betty Boop, it's going to open the V3 client screen, client review, because you're on a V3 screen. Now, the only place that's different, and I know this is kind of confusing, but I wanted people to know about it, is on the ticket list. And nope, it's doing it today. So, or I may have had my last, generally this will go to whatever your last setting was. So if you're on, and I would be willing to bet, so if I go back to the My Day page, and I'll show you again, if I open Betty Boop from here, now it'll open a V2 client screen, right? So if I go back to the My Day page, now, if I go to something else like invoices or forms, I would be willing to bet I'm in a V3 version. So if I switch back to V2, and the reason I'm showing this is it's key to what you're clicking on. And now I go back to my ticket list. Now, if I click on this account, Baby Ruth, it's going to open a new tab in the V2 client screen. So if you're clicking on this link here for an account and you're getting something other than if you're getting a V3 overlay, that means you've clicked that button at the top of one of these screens that says try out the new version. So you were on a V3 screen and you switched that over. It used to only open in V3 all the time because it was on a V3 screen. The quick add always does. No matter, it's dependent on, or the quick search is dependent on the page you're on. This list uses whatever setting you had opened before. Does that make sense to everybody? Please, somebody give me a thumbs up telling me that what I'm saying, that part makes sense, because I think it's confusing. And if it's not completely clear, I'll try to explain it better. Somebody want to unmute and chime in for me, please? Thumbs up, Chris. Okay. All right. So as long as everybody else agrees, does everybody agree that that makes sense? The client view that you get is dependent upon a bunch of different factors, but on the ticket list, it's whatever version of the software you were using before. I can't tell you. So I can tell you because I don't work there anymore. Having two versions is like anytime we were ever in a meeting when I worked at Service Autopilot and they asked, what can we do to improve the software? I said, find it so we don't have two versions. If any of you guys know, you probably heard the story if you're in any other sessions, but I was the training manager there, and we had to train almost every new client, every new customer that we brought in, how to use the software if they called us or we needed to, or we did these types of trainings or in-house trainings and stuff like that. And the most frustrating thing, even for us trainers and the training manager and the training team, everybody, was that there was two versions and we had to explain to people how it worked and why. Like, we just spent 7 or 8 minutes, how many ever minutes, talking about how it opens and why. It's so frustrating. It really is. And I don't know that they ever have a plan of how to fix it. That's part of the reason why I don't work there anymore, is it just there wasn't a clear vision of what it was going to be to make it work the way it needed to. And so, yeah, I'm not confident at any point that they're going to figure out how to make that so it's not going to work that way. But eventually, maybe someday they will. And I know there were probably people maybe in this list that ever said, if we ever have to use only V3, we're going to quit or whatever. People said that all the time. I don't know what the final, this is the only way to do it is, but there needs to just be one way. And when it clicks on it, this is what happens. And it looks the same all the time. Like, it's weird that you could be on this screen and open Baby Ruth here and it's V2, and this screen you open Baby Ruth and it's V3. So it's weird. I'll acknowledge it. I don't have any say in it anymore. So I can't do anything to fix it. I can just tell you how it works. And that's how it works. So be mindful of that. All right. So moving things around, tickets, editing the list. There are some functionalities that happen as soon as you click on one of these items. And if you notice, as soon as you get rid of all of them again, it goes away. These are called the bulk actions, right? And it doesn't have to be in bulk, but they can be. So they're just maybe called actions. You can start watching in bulk, stop watching in bulk. You can update the status to open, on hold, pending, or complete. And if you think it's weird that this one says complete and this one says close, it absolutely is. Again, something I mentioned 1,000 times while I worked there, and hasn't been a priority, but the complete and close is the exact same function. If you complete or close these tickets, they're going to say, let me close one real quick. I don't want to close any of these. Yeah, I'll get into closing them in bulk in a second, because I want to show you how to filter. Right now they're open, but if you click on any of these, you can close, delete, or reassign. So that's the stuff you can do in bulk. Just like most other screens, V3 screens are cool in that you can create or add new filters. So right now I'm going to clear all filters so it's not showing anything. And I want to build my own filter, because there is a list, and you go to all saved. There is a list of all the tickets that there's some common filters. So tickets updated in the last 30 days, started by a note, started by a call, started by a calendar event, past due, right? Well, let's just say I want to add my own filters. So you can click add filter. And let's say I want to find all of my ticket types that contain a note, right? So I'm going to update that. And so now I'm looking at all of my notes. And let's say I want to find all of the ones that are assigned to Audrey Spencer. We're going to do that because I don't use this test account very much, and I doubt there's any tickets assigned to me. Or the person I'm logged in as, and I'm not Sanders Young, but that's who I'm logged in as. So if I update that filter, now I'm only going to see tickets that are note type assigned to Audrey Spencer. You could keep adding and stacking more filters. So maybe if you wanted to do ticket categories, and this is again why you would set these up, and we're going to look at the settings in a minute. but you can build out different ticket categories. So if you wanted to find the status of any individual's tickets or your own tickets or whatever that are just for a specific category. So maybe I think there's a category in here, damage case, service schedule, reschedule request, terminate service. So you can filter those out. So let's just put one in here. Let's see if there's any categories, uncategories of billing. Let's just say billing. So we update that filter. Now we're down to only one ticket, right? Which if you have real data, you're going to have more than one ticket, probably not when you first start, but whatever. So let's say that's something I want to look at all the time. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to say billing notes assigned to Audrey and save it, right? So now if I clear all those filters, it's come back to having no filters. But if I go to all save filters, it's not in this list, it's added by me. So you're going to have your own list and you can edit it, you can delete it, you can rename it. The way you make adjustments to it is if you open it up and you can add more stuff or change something to it. So maybe you're like, all right, billing was too specific or note type was too specific. I'm going to turn that off because it could be a note or a call. You can either reset it or update it. Now it's updated. And so now if I go back to all save filters, it's billing notes assigned to Audrey, which I don't want that. I'm going to take out the notes. So I'm going to hit rename and I'm going to put billing tickets because I got rid of just the notes assigned to Audrey and just resave it. And now that's what's going to load, and it'll load the contains Audrey's assignment contains and the category is billing. Now, if you wanted to change that later, you could add to it and change it. You could do anything you want for your business. Like maybe it's schedule service, update the filter. Now you have more things. Maybe you don't want to have a category. You just want to hit update. You want to create one that's all tickets assigned to Audrey, any status. You could change, you could add the status. So you could add open tickets. You can do whatever you want. Does that make sense? It's customizable that you could add and save any number of filters and tickets and everything else. If you want to start back from scratch, clear all filters and then open tickets again, then load it up and open all of your tickets. Does that make sense? All right, so let's clear this filter. I want to go back. I want to show you some bulk actions. So bulk, I'm coming to Audrey's tickets. And now let's say I want to close a couple of these, which I'm going to look and see what they are. Estimate accepted online. Let's just close one or two. Let's just close one of these. So you can either do that one of two ways. Click the close button quickly or update status and then complete. Again, like I said before, it's the same thing. And here's another scratch off. I'll do it each way and you'll see what happens. So if I click a close, does somebody have a question? Oh, maybe somebody just jumped in and said, oh, let's jump in. All right, so I close it. Now it disappears from the list because it's not open. Or maybe not. Why did it disappear from the list? This is just contains the assignment. I don't have a status for that. Why did it disappear? We'll have to look at that. Maybe it's defaulting to. Hold on a second. Let me see. Ticket status, select all, update. Okay, yeah, when it was closed, that was weird. So if you want all statuses, you can create it because that one had all, or maybe it was all open tickets, something like that. But the point here is you could load the status and now you could see all of them. The one I recently closed was this one here, and it shows closed. And I click the close button, right? So if I go down here and it, let me close that back out. Let me find another one of these old ones. So we're going to look for 192 and I'm going to click the update status and then hit complete and hit OK. And you notice it disappears from here. I'm going to add the filter. I'm going to ticket status. I'm going to add close to it. And you'll see that there's no complete status in here. So when I load that back up, you'll see 192, hopefully, if this thing loads. Does anybody else's Service Autopilot run slow today? Or is it just mine?
Hadn't been too bad today yet.
No? Okay.
When you get a chance,
sorry?
when you get a chance, can you show us the categories that you've made in your system?
Yeah. I'm still just kind of going through the list.
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely. I don't know why it didn't load. Let me go back to this. Add filter. Let's just do the whole status and select them all. That loaded the last time. Let's see if that works. I don't know. Sometimes stuff breaks. It doesn't work. All right. 192, close. They both show close. So if you complete it or close it, it does the same thing. Weird, right? Okay. All right. Reset all those, clear all the filters, and go back to nothing. So that's basically the list, the ticket list. There's a ton of stuff in here. I know I could spend all day talking about building out filters, doing different stuff. If you look at all of these combinations, if you filter by account name, so let's go back. This is one it is really neat, but they added it to the beginning. So I'm going to open tickets. If you know you're looking for an account name of James, I don't know if there is one, but we'll type it in and hit search. No, there's nobody in here named James. Rafa. Let's try Rafa. One ticket, Rafa. Okay. So if you know your ticket name, if you know the account name, you could search it in here. There is also a filter for that account vendor name, and you can add it and it saves it over on the left. You can do assignments. You can do, is it important or not? Are you watching it? Last updated date, ticket categories, due dates, number, past due, status, type, and vendors. If you notice the ticket type, those are not settable. Like those are not, you can't adjust these. You can change the ticket categories, and that's what we'll go into next. Thanks, Chris. Notes, calls, emails, and calendar events. Emails or anything emails, if you integrate with emails, they come in as emails. If you had emails before and you could, and they were migrated into your system, they came through as emails. If you create a new email now, it comes through as a note or a call. It does. I got to double check that. But if you create a new ticket, you can't create a new email ticket, an email category ticket, or an email type ticket. It has to be done through some other interaction with the system. I don't remember if automations create new tickets, emails that are sent as tickets. But if you integrate with if you have email integration, if an email comes in, it'll have, you can't create a new ticket type that is an email. So that has to come in from some other way. Vendors, all that kind of stuff. So that's the ticket list. Any questions there on the ticket list before we move on?
Hey, John, it's Holly from Premium Design. One quick question is, for some reason on my account, I cannot see tickets. Is that something you have to have client portal for, or?
You probably don't have it on in your roles and rights. I talked about it a little at the beginning, but everybody said they had them and using them. So go to the gear icon up here. And again, if you remember, this is one of those places. When I click the gear icon, when this page loads, I don't have to move anywhere else. I can start typing user roles, start typing because it automatically goes in that box and it'll filter that list. Go to user roles and rights. In this case, I think I'm an owner, but pick your role, click on it. And then check all your settings, but in CRM over here on the left-hand side, it's probably right here. None of this is on for you, I would imagine. So turn on ticket access and just click the box at the top and it'll turn all these on. If anybody else is missing this, click this here. There are a couple other places where I think you can control F or command F or control F or command F on a Mac. And you can type ticket, and down at the bottom, if you see on the bottom of my screen, when you're on a page, it'll find it. So there's 3. You can double check to make sure there's nothing else in there. I think there's one on this page. No phrases. All right, so maybe it's only the CRM page, but just click that on and hit save. And then when you refresh your screen, you should have CRM tickets. Does that work, Holly?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. And that goes for anything, honestly, inside Service Autopilot. If you see something that's missing, other than chemical tracking, you turn on yourself. Forms are always on. If you don't have Dispatch snow jobs has to be turned on in a different place, but if you're not doing snow, projects, dispatch calendar, and I think that's it now. There's a couple of things that Service Autopilot has to turn on for you, but tickets isn't one of them. It's probably a user rolling right. And if you're finding something's not there, it's probably a user rolling right that you need to turn on. So check there first and just look for the box and you can search for it or anything like that. All right. So now that we're here, I'm going to type in, which I clicked out of there. So if I click back on the gear icon, and I'm not moving my mouse, I'm just moving to get ready. But if I type tickets, it's going to give me ticket categories. And so, Chris, you asked again for the ones I have. There's going to be a couple in here. I think any of the ones, I don't remember what comes default anymore. If there's nothing in here, then you can add a new category and just start adding it. There are tags that you can add to have an account tagged when a ticket is completed. So let's say, for instance, and again, this goes into the business cases. Let's say you have a damage case, which I don't have a tag for that, but needs follow-up, prefers phone calls, whatever. If you want to build a tag that happens, and I can add it, so I think I can create a new tag. Let me see. Nope, you can't create a tag from the screen. So you can add or remove a tag. So let's say that's probably the remove is probably more functional. So let's say you have a automation that creates a ticket when someone, and we have this at RBS, this is why I'm going to mention it. But let's say we have at RBS, let me phrase that differently. We have an automation that if one of your workers is out in the field and they fills out a form that says there's an upsell opportunity available, because they notice soil compaction or whatever you want to set it up as. So maybe they can upsell aeration and seeding, or whatever you do in your business. You can have a ticket that's created that tells someone in your office to get pricing and send them an estimate. Then when they click a link that closes that ticket, you can remove the tag that says need upsell email or whatever it is. So you can build out automations that manage and take care of the communication and the tagging and untagging. Or if you can just, when you create a damage case ticket for this category, you can have a tag that gets added to the client's account that says has previous damage or whatever. And then you could filter your client list by that tag, so that you can go and say, okay, how many people in this year did we have that we damaged their property? And you could start to build reports off of that. Or you can't do reports because you can't filter by tags, but you could export a list of your clients and do something with them. There's a lot of stuff you can do. So these categories that you see here, again, this is a test account. It's not even my test account that I had built when I worked at Service Autopilot. Someone actually a couple days, I don't know, not long ago, turned it off. I still had access. So we have an RBS one, a test account that we can use, but it's not real live data. So if you notice, these are modified forever ago. I don't have access to an account that has like real live data. I mean, we can log into our client accounts and stuff, but I don't want to show you anybody's, even though this is not that important stuff. But you can make as many of these as you want. So you could build out all the different types of ticket categories that you can have. You can want to have. If you want 4, you can build 4. If you want 100, you can build 100 and use them all. My suggestion would be, if you check any of these boxes, you can delete them. But if you've used them in the past or used them for anything, it could get tricky. My suggestion here is to make any you don't want to use currently inactive, because you might want them later. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not like services and products where you have a ton of data and different things, but I just don't like deleting most things in Service Autopilot. Just make it inactive. It won't show up in lists. It moves over to the side. If you ever need it again, you can turn it back on and you don't have to do a bunch of stuff. One of the other cool things is you can tie the category to a wiki page. So if you're using wikis over here, the wiki over here in Service Autopilot, you can add the categories to the pages. So if you needed to, you could add you could link to and add to the wikis. I'm not going to get into all that because that's way too deep of stuff. But that's some of the display order. You can add these and number them. The thing I've found is if they don't all have a number, it doesn't always honor it. It shows this list alphabetical, but if you go to look at, like when you go to add a new ticket or look at the categories, sometimes it feels like there's never a rhyme or a reason to how it's sort of listed in there. So you can play with that and see if you can get it to work, the display order. But I've found that a lot of times if you add a new category and let's say you want it to show up at the top, maybe you hit 00 new category. I'm not going to give it a display order or anything else. If I hit save, then it's going to be in that order. If I add 01 newest category, can I spell that right? No. Category. Oh, I can't spell today. And I hit save, then it'll order a number them that way. Now I know I told you don't delete anything, but I'm not going to make those inactive. I just created them to be fake. But you could list scape. I tried to coin the phrase. It didn't really catch on, but you can list scape. So like list hygiene, you can make your list nice by adding some characters or numbers. I think you can put emoji in there for like damage case if you want it to show up and be prevalent. You can do all kinds of stuff with the categories. Any questions here? Chris, I know you wanted to see them, but do you have questions about maybe how you might want to use them, stuff like that? Does anybody have questions?
No, I appreciate you going over it. I think I need to see how other people use it to help me be more creative than what I just see here. That's
Get some
all.
ideas. Yeah. And honestly, when you start digging into it, you're going to notice, you're going to say, okay, some of these are pretty straightforward. Billing, accounting, those are really similar. Do we need two of those? Probably not. Cancel and reschedule requests, those come from the client portal. So there's probably in your account there. It makes sense to have those. Account issue and billing, is that the same thing or different? Maybe not at first, but then you start getting calls and you're like, man, these people keep calling, but it's not really a billing question. So that's probably why someone has an account issue. An estimate category is absolutely its own thing. Then you could also build out separate categories, and we'll talk about this when we get into the calendar event tickets, but you could build out separate categories of estimates. So it could be estimates drive-by, estimate meet with client, estimate, whatever. And you don't have to give it the estimate name every single time. And there's no like subcategories of a category. So you might need to add to it, but another one is marketing. Maybe it's a marketing ticket. It's whatever you think you need to use this for in your business. Terminate service, some action I need to take. You're going to find that you're going to need another category later on, and you can just come and add it. There's places you can add it while you're doing it. So you don't always have to have it, but it's coming and added, and it's super easy. And again, all you need is type the name. There's nothing else that's required in here that needs it. And you're just giving it sort of a folder for your folders to go. It's really just hygiene. If you just had it in as other, then all of them would go into other. Now, I would say there's a caution there, because if you're going to automate things or do stuff, then it uses the category as like a trick, this ticket type or this ticket category was triggered, or this event happened. So you probably don't want to just use one, but you'll start to build those out as you go, as you get, and like Chris said, talking to other people and how they use it, that makes complete sense. Because then you can get some other creative ideas on how to do it. And again, I think we have a bunch at Ready Business Systems. Let me look and see if I'm logged in anywhere. Hold on a second. Automation edit. No, that's a client account. Hold on a second. I'll circle back around, Chris, and show you later. Otherwise I have to log out of this and log into mine. But I could show you what some of our ticket categories are in Ready Business Systems later. Okay, so now let's get into the meat and the bones. If no one has any other questions, we're gonna dig into adding viewing, I'm showing it like I'm looking at it, but we'll dig into adding viewing, editing a ticket. So all the places you can edit tickets, what you needed for it and stuff like that. Again, we've already intermixed some of the business cases, but if there's anything else or places where you're having or needing other ideas, then we can talk more about those too. Let me go through and make sure. Hold on, I'm double checking. I got a more detailed outline. Okay. So adding tickets can be done in a number of places, like a lot of things in Service Autopilot, which makes it nice because you could be on a screen, you could be doing anything, and you can use especially the quick add button and it pops up. But again, like it was before, you're going to see it, the look of it is going to be slightly different in a lot of different places. So I'm on what very not clearly to everyone, but to me looks like a V2 client screen. And so if I go and I click add a ticket, or not a client screen, a V2 list screen, it's going to pop up this V2 overlay pop-up version of tickets, right? If I'm on the CRM tickets list or any other V3 list screen, when I click that quick add, it's going to slide in and have an actual overlay where it covers over the screen. Now you could still click over here and do stuff, but it loads in, but it's the exact same data. So if you're on a My Day page, if you want the V2 version every single time, come to the My Day page and then add a ticket from the quick add, or go to the settings lists, go to something that you know is a version 2 screen. Otherwise, it's going to dictate off of, again, like the tickets before the account, off of what screen you're on. So it doesn't matter if you've been on a version 2 or version 3 screen before, no matter where you're at, when you click the plus and add a ticket, it's going to show based on the screen you're on. So I'm going to go over some V2 stuff. The other place you can add a ticket is from the ticket list. So when you're on the ticket list, you can add a ticket up here. And if you've never gone through the walkthrough, which again, I don't know, I must have cleared the data or someone at Service Autopilot did, but it's reloading the data, or maybe because I'm logged in as this new person. It'll add the quick add ticket overlay. And again, we're going to go through this in a little bit. The other place you can add tickets is from a client screen. So if I go back to Betty Boop, when I'm in here, there's 2 places you can do different things. You can add a quick note to the account, or a note by just clicking there and starting typing, and then you can change the status to open or closed. That's it. And when you add it, it adds a little note down here. It's got the little note icon, and it'll play through. The V3 activity stream is loaded in here, and so it starts with a little bit, and you could scroll down, but you could add a note very quickly. Alternatively to that, from the V2 client screen, you can click more and click add a ticket, and it's going to pull up that same ticket as the quick add, but it's going to have the account already loaded for you, and it's going to be tied to this account. You can still, so if you create it from here, you can't change it. It's going to be assigned to Betty Boop because you're creating it to that client when you click that button. Now, if you're on the screen and you click the quick add ticket, the account's going to be empty, and then you could put in the account name Betty Boop. And that one, if you're like, oh shoot, it wasn't supposed to be for her or supposed to be for Central Plano, whatever, you can re-add it. But if you do it from the client screen, now that's V2 or V3 client screen. The V3 client screen looks different, obviously. And so when you load that Betty Boop, you would add a ticket over here in the actions menu. So you'd see your list of tickets. You could still add a note really quickly, which works this exact same way, open or close. And this still, it creates a ticket, but it's just a quick note. So it sometimes gets confused, but it still creates a ticket. But if you want to add a ticket over here, then it pops open that ticket overlay. Again, it's weird that it's 2 different versions, 2 different screens. It shows up in different places. But the one thing you will absolutely notice is it's the exact same data. So I'm going to go back to the My Day page, and I'm going to create I'm going to start to create a ticket from the quick add, and I'll show you there, but it's the exact same. It asks for all of the exact same information. I don't know why it's always loading slow when you're doing training. So click on ticket, and we're going to add a new ticket. So for a note, the bold fields are required. So you need a type, you need a ticket category, you need a subject, and that's it. That's all you need to have saved for a note. For a call, it's the exact same thing. And if you remember, notes and calls pretty much the same. They're just a different type. That's it. Everything else is the same with them. When you click on event, it adds a few more things. So you have a ticket category that gets saved, but then you also have an event category. And I forgot to cover this, so I'm going to click Command and hold down the control key, or on a Mac, it's Command, and I click the little gear icon and open a new tab so it doesn't go back from this page. And I forgot calendar event categories when we were looking at ticket categories. And so this is where you would have, and I mentioned it in the ticket categories, but this is where you might have estimate drive-by, estimate meet with client, estimate whatever. You're going to have that in the calendar event categories, not in your ticket categories. So your ticket categories might be real high level. You might have 4 or 5, 6, 10, whatever. Your calendar event categories could be the opposite. You might only have 1 or 2, or you could have 1,000 of them, because this is where you dictate what it is. Like you could have a calendar event category for office tasks that require, leaving the office. So maybe it's, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, stuff like that. You could build out these categories again to do whatever you want, because then these you have to give both. So you have to give it so this one would be a ticket category, an estimate, and then the event category might still be estimate, or it's estimate, drive, meet with client, whatever. The location is going to not default to, but it's going to try to go to. So if I load Betty Boop here, it's going to load her location. Now, if that's not where I want the person to go, like maybe this ticket is assigned to, this calendar event is assigned to Betty Boop, but you're creating a ticket so that you can route it, a calendar event ticket, so you can route it, but it's go and pick up materials for Betty Boop. So maybe you type in the location some other place, like maybe it's not Betty Boop's address, maybe it's the 1201 Richardson Drive. Which I just know that number off the top of my head. It's the old Service Autopilot address. Maybe you want somebody for Betty Boop's account to go here first. Well, who's that somebody? You do that in the assignments. All right, hey, I got a chat. Can you automate tickets to remind workers to service equipment? Absolutely, Matt. That is a 100% very useful automation ticket, and we have it in our one of our automations for RBS. But absolutely, so you could build out that automation sequence that says here's this piece of equipment, and this is how often I want somebody to be assigned to going and doing it. And the beauty of, again, if you just use a note or a call, it'll still remind them, and it'll say, hey, remember to go do this job. You can mark it as complete, and it'll get rid of the tag if you want to just do it that way. Or you can create it as a calendar event. And the beauty of that slightly is you could always just create a calendar event. You don't even really need to use an automation. So if you're not using automations, you could create it as a recurring calendar event, and it'll keep popping up every year or every frequency. But an automation absolutely works great with that, because then you don't have to create a recurring event. You can just create one ticket that is an event ticket, and then it can be scheduled and routed. So if they're doing maintenance, maybe you lump all of their maintenance stuff on equipment into one day, or maybe not, or if it's then they can go through it and complete it, and you keep track of how long it takes them to complete the job. With a note or a call, you can't clock into it or out of it or schedule it the same way. Like you can have it show up and it'll be on the calendar, but if you have an event ticket, it'll show on the dispatch board, and you could have whoever's doing the service or the maintenance to it can absolutely go on there, and then it'll show on the dispatch board. The other cool thing with that is, and I love nerding out about this, is if you have it on there and it's assigned to the technician or whatever, you can have a big note in there that says, like if their truck's getting a state inspection for the day or service and it's out of order, then they can't be out, or they're going to need a different piece of equipment or whatever. So you could use that and the ticket and the information in it to make sure that you don't schedule, 20 yards for somebody to cut when their mower is going to be serviced for that day. Like obviously you're going to try and service stuff when they don't need it, but you know what I mean? There's ways you can do that. So yeah. So you would have to make your equipment own account, right? Sort of. So yeah. So what we do, thanks, Matt. That's awesome. So what we do, sometimes people will do, and we do it with RBS a lot, but you can create an account for all of your employees and all of your equipment, and then you could schedule stuff to it. But even if it's not, like you could put in the subject and the body for this event. So it might be maintain, do maintenance on 36-inch mower, right? Or something like that. Whatever it is, you could put the body, you could put a list of parts, you like whatever details you wanted to put in there. So belt, and you might have 1563852, that's the part number. Oil filter, you know what I'm saying? Like you could build out this body, create it as a separate status, assign it to Sanders. When do you want to start the date? So I'm going to show it today, and it's going to be due tomorrow, anytime. And I'm saying this should take a half an hour, right? So let's change this category we'll change it to other. And then this one's not estimate. So I'm going to change that one to other too. But let's say we create this, right? So I'm going to save that, and it's going to pull up the ticket review. As soon as you save it, no matter what screen it's going to post it on. If it's on a V3 screen, sometimes I think it asks, do you want to view it? But this is going to pull it up, and this is the view, and this is the beginning stages of this ticket. And I'm going to move off of it for a second, but you can then add to it. You can create related items, estimates, jobs, or other tickets. You can see who's watching it, who else is doing work with it. You can see a lot of data about the ticket right from this review screen when it's due, which I didn't set a due date when I created it. But if you wanted to edit it and set a due date, what I did do though was I created it as a calendar event. And so it's going to show up on the dispatch board for today. Client's account is Betty Boop, which again, if it didn't have an account, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. You might have it like just your shop address or whatever as the account, and that's who you assign the equipment to. So you're not, if you want to keep track of what's getting done on each piece of equipment, then you might need an account, because then you could have a form attached to it. Like there's a ton of stuff you can do that's totally deeper than what we're doing. But even if this just said do maintenance on 36-inch mower, when you click on that, now it has all of those details, which I don't know why that it doesn't go to the, but all those details that you built into it, you would have in here. Again, I don't know why the appointment time, the end date didn't make that the due date, but if you had an appointment time, you could set that appointment time. Instead of budgeted hours, you could set that. And the cool thing about that too is you can use start time and end time as a trigger. So if you're doing it for estimates, you can give them a window of when you're going to be there by setting that appointment time. And then you could say in a text message, say, hey, your estimate was scheduled for today. It's on our dispatch. It's on our route for today. Our anticipated time of arrival, our window is 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. or whatever it is. You can use start time and end time. If you set the appointment time here, you can use start and end times as a merge tag, as a personalization field when you send a text or an email to a client, and you can automate that too. Will that ticket always show up on the My Day page for me as the owner to see that it has to be done by the worker and when it is completed? So great question. What tickets show here on the My Day page is it generally due today is going to show your due tickets. If you're watching it, you can see that here, but it's only going to show in the due dates, the dues, and open if it's assigned to you. Or if you click all tickets, then you'll see everybody's tickets. Now, I will say a lot of these are super old and they show first, and there's no way to show it more clearly. And so the new stuff, again, is super weird and dumb, but the newest one is going to be at the bottom and has no due date. Now, if I was watching a bunch of tickets, but it's going to show your tickets unless you're watching them. So all of these other tabs, open, due, all tickets are yours only. If you want to see other people's, then you either need to be dedicated as watching them, or I would set up a new ticket category, a new ticket filter that on the ticket list that watches anything you want to watch. So if it's open, pending, you can check at the status and create a new save filter and just get used to checking the ticket list, because the My Day page isn't going to show what you're asking about directly. I hope that answers your question. I know it sucks. I wish you could see more on the My Day page, but just get used to using the ticket list, to be honest, and filters. And you'll see way better stuff. Thanks. Great question though, Matt. And I think everybody benefits from hearing that question. So yeah, and just to finish this up, so the calendar event, and we'll go back to editing some of the other ones and adding to it. But this is where if you click never, then you can change how often. So let's say that's a monthly thing. You want to maintain that service, or maybe it's sharpen blades and you want to do it every day. You can change that to daily and then use the settings here to decide how often and when you want this ticket calendar event to reoccur, and it'll keep popping back up. You can change the assignment to no one and then assign it as you would, just like any other job. Event tickets come in on the dispatch board as with the yellow background. So if you're clicked off of the screen, they show as a yellow background, as long as Zoom is not doing scratch off stuff. They show as a yellow background. And so you can easily distinguish them from other jobs. Now, if you've moved a bunch of jobs to another day and they're green, the green and yellow, they definitely don't look the same, but your list can get kind of crazy, and sometimes the order and the numbers. And so you might need to look at how things, just look on your dispatch board, because the only thing you can't do, and I wish there was a way, unless you knew the service name of the ticket, there's no way to filter out your list other than maybe it's an assignment. But if you had like to-dos and actual jobs on the same person's thing, you can't filter your list on the dispatch board to where you can only see the to-dos that they need to do or jobs that they need to do. So they become jumbled, but it's partly because these are schedulable. So this one is being done at the thing, but maybe that thing for Betty Boop was, look at her storm door to figure out what glass is needed. And again, it goes back to our use cases, damage cases, and why you would want to use a ticket. And I know when I'm trying to explain this, I'm bouncing around and coming up with a bunch of different things. But I'm trying to give a broad overview of how different ways you can use it. So if it was an estimate, maybe you have an estimator and you could filter by that thing. So resource, which is over here. So if I filtered just by resource, then you could see just Sanders' assignments if he's just doing estimates for a day, and then you could schedule and route them. You can optimize them, everything else you would normally do. Okay. Let's go back to the ticket. So in the ticket screen, when it opens, if you remember, I created it from a V2 screen. It always opens it here. I'm watching this ticket. I can clear that box. I thought, no, we can't. Maybe I can. Weird. Okay. But you could see a bunch of data. Sanders Young, you can click on that to open his account. You can change the tabs to see the activity. This is only going to show ticket activity. It's not the activity stream from the client. This is just what's happened. The due date, status, all that kind of stuff is editable from the edit button. And this is where you also assign related items. So let's say I wanted to link a different ticket. You could click that here. You could link an estimate that's on her account to this. And you can also link jobs that are scheduled or completed. I think you can link jobs to this account too, to this ticket. If you wanted to come in here and change the category, you could do that. If you wanted to add a due date, of tomorrow. Where's my calendar? Click on it. There it is. Add a due date tomorrow. Click over here in the corner and click save. Now, when you get back to the review screen, let me let this load. It should refresh. And now it's open. So let's talk a little bit about, real quick, the statuses. So if I want to change the status of this ticket, it gets a little tricky because you can't change it from the ticket list very easily. Or I mean, the ticket overlay, you can close it. You can add an event, you can add an estimate, you can stop watching it, you can schedule a job from it, you can fill out a form, you can mark it as important, you can mark it as deleted, or you can do all the advanced actions, or you can view the audit trail, but you can't change the status, which we long asked, like be able to click through or do something here other than close it. In order to change the status, you either have to do it from the ticket list or you have to open the actual, because so this ticket is showing it, but it's in like a folder. You have to open the ticket itself, which is the one you created where it says do maintenance, and then I can click edit. And on a counter event, I don't think it's on a note that you can do it in here. Sorry. You on the counter event, it becomes you can change the status to close it by completing it from the dispatch board. Like there's no easy or real easy way to make the change. So you might come back here and you could click on this and go back to the, and I got here by closing out that overlay ticket and it came back to the ticket list, but then you could change the status over here. It's sort of wonky, I'm gonna be honest. Again, I don't have any way to fix it or control it, and I've already complained a million times. So I don't know what else they'll do, but you can't change it from that overview. So you have to go do something else. And I think that's long been a complaint of people that complain about V3 is that the pieces are in a lot of different places. So you can't change the status, but you can come here. Now, the way I would describe how you use statuses, it matches almost perfectly how Service Autopilot describes it, but open is just that. It's open. It means there's action required. You leave it open because you need to keep track of it. On hold means, the way I would use on hold is you put a ticket in on hold status if you've sent, let's say, an email to, or you've sent work, or you're waiting for someone either in your office, you're waiting for a part, you're waiting for a vendor, you're waiting for some outside source to do some action in order for you to continue to have progress on a task on a project. Pending means I sent an email to someone, more than likely the client or whatever, and it's pending their response. And so on hold means you need someone else to do something. Pending is you're expecting. You're not just, I know you're expecting, but you're not going to do any other action until someone else does something which would change the status of the ticket back to open. Then pending is I sent an email to somebody. You could leave it open if you wanted to follow up, but pending is I sent an email to somebody. Now I'm waiting for them to reply back to me about it. And then complete is that. It's complete, it's done, it's closed, that kind of thing. So those are the 4 statuses. And that's how I would use them. Open is just that, open. So you can leave anything open. Okay? Let's look at quickly, we're going to look at adding a quick add ticket. And I'll show you how it's all the same on V3. So again, notes, and it's not as clear in here which ones are which fields are required because they're not as bold. I think there used to be some bold text, but if you try to save it, it won't until you have certain information filled out, and the save button won't turn orange until you have those items. I can tell you, just because I know, that it needs an account, right? So let's add. Where's Betty? How come I'm only getting 4 people? All right, let's do Baby Ruth instead. It needs a category. So even if it's other, it doesn't matter. And so the save button's still not there. And then you need a subject line, testing ticket. So you need a subject line. You need these first three sections, and then the save button will show up. If you delete out, which I don't think you can after you select it, you can change it to something else. Yeah, maybe because I already selected one. Now it's on categories. But either way, you need those three things. You don't need a body, you don't need a status, you don't need an assignment, and you don't need a due date, but you can set all of that here when you create it. Call, same information. An event, like I said, it's the same box, it's just in a different category, like a different thing. If you come down here, this one will let you save it because the category wasn't selected, but I might try to save it and see what it does, but I think you still need an event category, so it might error out, but I would still add in any of these pertinent details. Like I would say, even though it doesn't need it, you still are going to want to have this information. So you probably need a body for something. You need an assignment. If it's going to be assigned to somebody, it's going to default to you because you're creating it. But if you need to change that to somebody else, you can. Event tickets, you can assign to multiple people. Notes and calls, you cannot. The one thing you can do is you can assign them to a team or a team in Service Autopilot. So if you needed it to go a note or a call to go to multiple people, that's the only way to do it, is to assign it to a team who those people are assigned to. Does that make sense? You can't multi-select assignments from notes and calls, but you can in an event. Due dates, pretty straightforward. It's just due dates. Status, here's again where you can set the status. So if you're creating a ticket, somebody called, and you don't have to do any other action, you can just change the status to closed and save it. Open. Yes, question. Chris says, can you please show me once again how to get to the place where you can link a ticket and estimate a job? Absolutely. Great question. So let's just create a note real quick for Baby Ruth, reschedule request, or let's do estimate. He wants an estimate. So let's say, we'll use this as a walkthrough. Let's say Baby Ruth called and says they want an estimate, needs estimate. So wants an estimate on cleaning, fence, and patio area. And fence is not spelled with the number 3 in it, so I'll take that out. The status is open because we're going to keep working on it. I'm going to assign this to somebody other than Sam. No, I'm going to leave it assigned to me. And I'm going to set a due date of Friday, I think, if the scratch off works. Okay. I love it. Look at that. Let's see if I won $1 million. I did. Save. Okay, so Baby Ruth has a new ticket. And it says, hey, it's created. Do I want to review it now? Yes, I do. Because as soon as I did that, I immediately realized I want to assign an estimate to it because it needs an estimate. If you click on that status, there it is, which I got to check maybe I got to double check, but this is where you could change the ticket status. Yeah, it didn't have that on the calendar events, but notes and calls do. And it's not super clear that you can click on it, which again was why I was clicking before, and you guys probably didn't notice I was looking. But this is where a note or a call, you can change the status. So you can, again, it's slow, but if you click that button, it pops it open. I was making a case for that it should happen here or on the list. Like there's a bunch of other places other than clicking into it to open it that you should be able to adjust the status and be able to do it. But you can change that here. This one doesn't do it. And then you have to hit save once you change it. Yeah, I don't want to save it. But you can only do that with notes and calls. The calendar event didn't have that option. And I'm going to double check it to make sure. But let's say, okay, now it needs an estimate, right? So you can do that in one of two ways. You can either add a calendar event to where you can schedule an estimate task for someone to go do, or you can just create a new estimate. Now, it's going to be weird because it opens in a V2 screen. You can create the estimate here, and when you save it, it's going to link to this estimate because you created it from this estimate. But let's say you already have one in here for this client. You can click edit over here on the left in the actions menu, and then come down to related items. And now you can link an existing estimate for this customer to that item. So let's say there was one from January 6th. Let's link that and save the ticket. Now when the ticket loads, there's any of your estimates that are associated with this ticket are going to be in here. And when you click on those, it's going to open up that estimate and show it right here that you can get to. And this one was one. Perfect. All right. So great question though, because that can get tricky, and that sort of falls into, and I'm trying to get the little chat box to go away. Hold on a second. That sort of falls into the V3 click link, click 1,000 places to get stuff done. It is sort of buried in the edit menu. So anytime you're on a V3 screen, if you're not able to do something you want to try to do, you probably have to edit it and look for it. But now that it's there, it's linked and it's here, and you can then click on stuff and do it. So really great question. Let me go back to my ticket list because I want to check this one here, 468. So do maintenance on, yeah, see how that status isn't there, the thing, and you can't do anything to it to change it. So category, ticket, event, calendar events can't be done that way, but the notes and calls do. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because we assign an estimate. But let's say we want to add a calendar event. So if there's a new note or a new call that needs to be associated with this, you can add that here in the actions menu. But let's say I want to schedule this as an estimate. No, it's not what I was trying to do. I want to add a calendar event, to this. And so I'm going to call it a budget, and then I'm going to say estimate anytime needs an estimate. And then it's going to say, which I wish it would carry over from what you wrote in the original conversation or the initial call, but wants a price for the fence and patio area. It's not going to repeat. It's not going to do anything else. It should take 30 minutes, so 0.5. Start it today, end it tomorrow. Let's start it tomorrow. We're going to assign it for tomorrow. End date tomorrow. Sanders has to go do it because then we can look on the dispatch board. Budgeted time. That sucks if you change the date. It clears that box out. Why is it not saving any of my budgeted times? It keeps zeroing. Oh, how nice. 1 hour. Yeah, 0.5 doesn't work. Okay, well, I can't put it in a half an hour. You could, fancy up this text if you wanted. You could repeat it if you needed to, but if not, I'm going to save it. Now, when I come back to this estimate, category type estimate needs estimate, the initial call is down here at the bottom. So they called in, said what they needed. Again, you can change the status and everything else. Now we have a job that says we need an actual estimate, which I tied the estimate to it, but let's say we didn't. You could then have your person in the office or whoever goes out to do the estimate, create the estimate inside this ticket, and it'd be related to it. And then you would have the ticket, which again, I just associated an old one, so it's in here. If you created jobs from that estimate, they would be assigned here too. If there was another ticket later that was attached to it because maybe the job needed a subcontractor to do some of the work, like you got there and the fence didn't just need to be cleaned up, it needed to be repaired, and you don't do fence repairs, someone else does. You could create a ticket inside of here that would encompass the work that someone else was doing to fix it or tasks that needed to be completed. And you could tie those tickets or that other larger ticket to this item and relate it because it all came from this one estimate. And that's how you can track large scale projects throughout the system. And then you would just know when I went to Baby Ruth, if I click on the person, then I would just know that these tickets And you might need to change the subject line occasionally to make sense of what it's doing. But you would know why you had those things. And let me see if I can change the order. There we go. No, can't. Okay. But you would know really quickly, and you could see from the status, it only shows on hold, pending, or open. But closed tickets will be in a different spot. Like you wouldn't see closed tickets here. You'd have to see those from the ticket list. But you could see really quickly what was going on. And if you're using the V3 screens, then when you click on it, it's going to pull up that whole list of things. Now, it only shows you, like I was showing in here, the main ticket name and what the subject line is. So if there's other stuff, if there's a calendar event, if it's other things that are coming up, they're not going to be in that top part under tickets, but they're still going to be down here, right? So I think this one's on future events because it's tomorrow. Yeah, see, needs estimate for tomorrow. It's not showing in the all history because it's not history. This one was saying they called. They said they need an estimate on cleaning the fence and patio area, but the future event is showing the needs estimate for tomorrow. Does that make sense? And so where you're looking at it now, if you're looking at this from a V2 screen, the data's still here. Let's go to Baby Ruth and open up his screen. The data's still here. It's just, it's going to be in it's going to be a little bit trickier to see as quickly and easily. There's no ticket tab. And this was one of the sort of, hey, let's get people to adopt V3 by doing some stuff where we'll give you ticket functionality because we don't want you to hate us for forcing you to use V3 if you're not going to use it. But let's only build out the ticket function, like the ticket section where you can see it. And there is some link to using V3 screens with tickets because then the client overview. And if you get used to using it, I'm going to be totally frank with you, or I'll be totally John with you. The more you use it, the more you may like it. Sure, it's a different workflow and you have to click on buttons. You're going to have to do stuff. But there are a lot of cool things in V3 that people miss or don't know about or just don't like, changes and things and the ability to do certain stuff is better in V3. Is there times where I pretty much still only use V2 anytime I'm in the system. So as much as I preach it, I don't practice it, but the more you use it, I think the more you would like it. And that happens a ton. Look at all these jobs. Baby Ruth gets used a ton in this account. Anyway, but you can't see that ticket list. Now you can still see future events and you can still, the activity stream looks the same, but this part of it, which it's a different view, it's Betty Boop instead of Baby Ruth, but it's a different view. And that splash screen, it's called a skeleton screen that loads before it loads. So it looks like it's loading something. It doesn't match. They never changed the picture. Again, so it doesn't match this list. Like if you noticed, it was all the things were in different order. It was an old picture. It was an old screenshot of a blank screen that never got changed. So, but seeing your tickets here really and jobs up at the top above the activity stream, like some of that stuff is really nice and it's key. Now, not being able to see tags unless you click other, like there's more clicks to some of it, but there is some cool stuff with tickets. And again, that's why we're talking about tickets. And I want to, but if you can get used to using V3 screens, you'll have more ticket access in front of you. If not, again, it's not that big of a deal. They'll still hear. I would just recommend you use your ticket list as a place you go and check regularly. Because if you're on a client screen, you wouldn't know they had an open ticket here like you would from the V3 screen as quickly, because you could see, oh, that ticket's open when they call. If you pull up a V3 client screen, you would know if they had open tickets. If you're on a V2 screen, you don't have that access as quickly. Like you really don't have it generally. Like you would see this note, but not some of the other stuff. Now, if you had it to where all it was showing in the activity stream, which you can click on this button and then unselect it and just select tickets. And when you load it, it's only going to show tickets. You could replicate the functionality of the ticket box that happens in V3, but you're limiting the activity stream then to only tickets. But you can absolutely go through, and this one is you could see closed tickets that way too, but you could replicate it. So you kind of got to just decide how you're going to use it. It's just not up at the top. I really do like being able to, if you pull up a client's account, you open it up and load it, and they start talking and you're like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're calling about a new topic. You're not calling about something you already had open. So you would know that. Oh, hey, I noticed you called, it says here, do motor maintenance on this account, but let's say it was, hey, I noticed you called in last week and asked for an estimate. We got, because you have a different person. We sent that to you, right? Should I follow up with anybody? You could stay on top of customer communication and set yourself up as like the rock star company in the area who you don't have to call, your customers don't have to remind you every time they call. You can have it open. Hey, are you calling in reference to ticket number? And if you make ticket numbers a thing, but hey, I noticed you have an open ticket here, number 468. Does that ring a bell? Here's the subject. And if you click on it, it'll open it real quick. And oh yeah, okay. Do we need to do more with it? Yes. If not, can I close it? Yeah, let me close that out. Close it, get rid of it, do whatever you need to do. Come back to this screen. Again, here's that skeleton screen. Watch what happens when it loads. It doesn't match it at all. So it's not tricking you into thinking it's working. But you get what I'm saying? Like you can use tickets to become a better customer oriented and customer focused company that wasn't capable before. As much as people complained and didn't like the to-dos and touch points and stuff like that went away, it really wasn't as robust and easy to sort of do. Now, does a lot of that rely on the V3 parts of it? Yes, because in the background, what they didn't really talk about much and didn't tell everybody was tickets to-dos and stuff didn't work that way. They didn't touch all the pieces and you couldn't link things and it didn't make sense. And so if one piece didn't work, it wasn't going to work together. But with V3, the way they built it, it's a lot easier for those pieces to be able to interact and work the right way. And that's why they're trying to do it all. If the UI isn't what's ideal or whatever, maybe, there's still time. They're working on fixing some of that stuff, I'm sure. But the functionality of it can't be replicated. Like, that's why I wanted to do a whole 2-hour section literally just on tickets, is because it's so robust. So let me double check my list and I'll go through it and we'll see if I missed anything or if anybody has any questions. So we did tickets, lists, stuff like that. All the places you can add a ticket. I think I created them all. I talked about all of them. Trying to think if there's any other weird place you can create a ticket that you wouldn't think you could create a ticket, but you can. What's needed? V2, V3. Oh, sending an email. Something just as simple. So again, if you're sending it in regards to a communication with a client, so inside this ticket, which again, this is a terrible one because we're using it as a calendar event for things. So let me open this back up. Let's go to Baby Ruth. We'll keep it a little more consistent. And it'll give me another drink of coffee, which is pretty much iced coffee now. But it's still delicious. I'm a splash of coffee with a cup full of creamer, flavored creamer, chocolate flavored creamer. So when you get down to the bottom, it's definitely all sugar. Oh, nice. Nothing's loading. Oh, Baby Ruth, here we go. All right. So we had this estimate ticket. I clicked on it. Now it's going to show working. It's going to load that ticket that we had everything for. So, man, I am struggling with this internet today. I wonder if it's mine, that my Zoom keeps going slow. I wonder if my internet just sucks today. I could probably do a speed test. That's not accurate, is it? I thought we linked. Didn't we link that estimate and create a calendar event? for Baby Ruth. Am I thinking wrong here? Future events. Need estimate. Oh, the ticket just closed. All right, I'm gonna close some of these tabs. See if that helps. My system's freaking out. Let's see if we can get something to load here. What? What's happening? I don't know what's happening. Tuesday, March 7th. Let's see if I click on that. I don't want calendar view. If you guys use that, it's here. Tickets, come on. There we go. All right. Baby Ruth needs estimate 469. Let's load that one back up. All right. I don't. You guys are watching. It's recorded now. It was just acting weird. It wasn't showing anything updated. So we added to it. It's due the 10th, but now it needs an estimate. Let's say you want to email. So if you wanted to make an internal thing, a note or a call, you can click that and it adds it just like it did the calendar event. But if you wanted to send an email, which I don't have to dive into this too much, but if you want to send an email to a client, let's see here. Matt, I think it serves Autopilot. Okay, cool. I try not to point the finger straight at them every time, honestly. But it usually is, right? Like it's probably not my internet. I'd like to give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it is, but either way, right? When I click to send an email, then you can send a new email. I'm not going to send this out because this is just going to Rebecca's test account. You can create a follow-up event because of the email. So if it's just another way of communicating, but it's sending it out, you're probably going to send it to your customer. Maybe it's, again, send to a vendor or something else. Use the damage case as an example. Broken glass. Maybe you need to follow up with, you have a glass guy or a glass company. You just shoot them an email with attachments of the pictures of what you found, the sizing, that kind of stuff. You could send all of that right here inside the ticket, and it keeps it all in one folder, all encompassed right into one space. Again, we're using this one as an estimate, so it's a terrible example to relate it to, but if this one was set up as a damage case and you built it out that way, you could have communications back and forth going in and out. Now, if you're not integrated with email integration, their response to you isn't going to come back into Service Autopilot. Just know that. So maybe you have to create a new note with their response and everything linked in there, or copied and pasted or whatever. I'm not trying to sell you email integration. But if you had it, when they replied back, it would reply back to you in your ticket and it would add a new item as an incoming email instead of an outgoing email. And you could have the reply right here inside Service Autopilot. So email integration absolutely works conveniently. One thing I wish there was a way that they would integrate as well as text messaging into a ticket. So if you're texting your client or a vendor or whatever about a ticket issue or some kind of ticket, that gets tracked in the message center and it's not tied. Maybe later they'll add it, but if it's not tied to the ticket, which that'd be cool. I think it would be cool. Maybe submit some enhancement requests is to add text messaging to tickets. Scheduling, estimates, all the other stuff. Market isn't important. That's kind of cool. If your market is important, it's got a big red flag. I wish there was some other indicator that was different than the open status, but it still marks it as important. You can clear it with a click. Taylor says, do you make a ticket for text as well? So it's all in one place. Then it's, that's a really great question. I probably wouldn't. It just seems like a bunch of extra work to me. Now, if you wanted to make a quick note, again, if you're on the client account and you wanted to make a really quick note, and you were down here in the client screen, and you were like, sent a text, because depending on your settings, you can have text messages show inside of here. So I clicked on it. I thought I did, but you can have text messages saved, and that will show up inside your activity stream. Okay. So you could see all of those back and forth. They're just not going to be linked to a ticket. And Taylor, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you came in late, so I was probably covering how it was tied together, all through along. But being able to attach it to and make it part of that ticket, I just think would be super cool, because it's a communication point between you and the customer, and it's happening in the message center over to the side, and there's no way to tie it together. You can see it from the client screen and the activity stream. You just can't know it's in here. But yeah, absolutely. You could create a new note in here that might say, sent text message about this matter, which I can't spell again, on 3-5, whatever. It's not checking spelling. Message about this matter. You could absolutely do that. Change the status to closed and hit save. Now, one thing I will say, that is absolutely the way you can change the status of any whole ticket, is if you add a new note or call and change that status to closed, then it'll close the whole ticket. So if that status is the only thing you need changed, then it becomes way more difficult with the way it's set, because then now this whole ticket is closed. And if you remember again from there, I could reopen it by clicking here and hitting save. Or maybe in this case, what I might change that to is pending, because I sent a message. Now I'm waiting on a message. And so we could change that status, which, why didn't it change? I think it just wasn't loading. Yeah, it hadn't updated. It still was showing close. So yeah. What about text through your voice over IP or like Facebook Messenger or chat box? Would you recommend putting that stuff together? Sure. Anytime you communicate with your client, if it's related to a topic or a project or a ticket that you've opened, absolutely. Yeah, I would keep a note and a record of it. That way you have tracking information. So if someone else, and the reason why some of this you do it, if it's just you and your business and you're not having to communicate with anybody else what's going on, and you don't need this info, then it may still not be there, but it could help you remember it later if you're like me and you don't remember stuff, and it's a good place to keep track. Oh, we did talk about that. But it becomes really powerful and useful if you have more people in your business, because then someone else can walk into this and look and say, oh man, here's the 14 communications about this topic or this issue, this thing. Here's all the pieces that go along with it, and it ties it all together, and it just keeps track of it. And that's where's my little preview screenshot? Sorry, I drug it down here. That's where this business case comes in. Tracking internal processes and communications, tracking customer communication, scheduling non-billable work, tracking progress of a project, why I should be using tickets. All of that stuff is encompassed around the idea of you keeping track of it. And if you do the stuff that's inside of a ticket that ties together easily, that stuff is part of it on its own. If you're using Facebook Messenger, if you're using other communication methods, if it's outside of how you communicate inside Service Autopilot, then it probably would be a good idea to make a note or a quick section about that in the ticket if you want to keep track of that communication. One thing that's cool about a lot of those other softwares is you can link to them. So let's say it was like a Facebook post or whatever, you can copy that link and paste it in here, and then you would have a reference to it. Taylor says, love to pick your brain and have a conversation. A little more on this. I'm going to try to create a workflow system, keeping information, customer care. I have more players in the business. I do have to jump back off for another call, but I will watch the recording in full and would love to. Yeah, please. Hey, Taylor, before you leave, I'm going to put give me 1 second. I'm going to copy Steve's Calendly link. Calendly Steve. It's super easy, but it's Calendly / I'm just going to copy and paste it here to everybody. Click on that. It'll open up a new tab in your browser window. It's linked to Steve. He's our sort of sales guy. He does marketing. Steve works with clients too. Steve's awesome. He's like one of the best parts about working here at RBS. I really like working with Steve. He's got super high energy. But he can explain like some of the stuff we offer, because a lot of this we can build. We have a lot of automations built out that we can download it in your system and then customize to do communication and a lot of different things. If it's estimate follow-up, if it's whatever, the different pieces. We have, I think it's 15 or 18 pre-built sort of customizable automations now that we do build plans for. And again, schedule the call with Steve this week, and we'll give you guys all $250 off your first month of the build, the cost of the build plans. If you just have questions, or maybe it is just like a one-off Service Autopilot training, we're doing that too, some custom stuff. So just ask him. He's probably going to ask me, but we can schedule stuff too, especially Taylor, if that's something you want to dive into. Absolutely. Anybody else? If you guys want to check out any of this stuff we do, schedule a call with Steve, and he'll do like a 30-minute ring. He uses Ring Central, but he could just jump on a call and walk through any of the stuff, and you come with a list of questions of things we can do, and then we'll get everybody set up. Yeah. So that, as far as tickets go in 2 hours, like honestly, I've spent 4 hours, 6 hours. I've spent way longer times talking to people about tickets. So for a 2 hour sort of crash course, pretty in-depth tickets, I think that covers just about everything I had that I knew I wanted to go over. Does anybody have questions while we got, I can stay and hang out for, a bunch more time, but does anybody else have questions while I'm still recording that it would, because I think they would help other people if they hear questions. Does anybody have any other questions about tickets and how you might want to use them? Different questions?